Well, as mentioned a little earlier, the next phase of the government's stimulus plan will likely focus on the housing construction sector. Home renovations and major construction projects look set to be boosted with cash grants. The Prime Minister made it clear today his priority is to create jobs.
The tradies and all the others, the apprentices and others who work in that home building sector are a sector we know are going to feel a lot of pain unless we can keep a continuity in the business of house construction, whether here in New South Wales or anywhere else. The measure that the Premier and I put across everything, and this is true right across all the states and territories, is how many jobs is going to create. We're in the job-making business.
The Australian construction industry generates around $360 billion a year and employs about 9% of the total workforce in this country. So to discuss what this announcement will mean for the industry, I'm joined now by Denita Wawn, the Chief Executive of Master Builders Australia. Denita, thanks for your time. I know that it's all still consultation phase with the government. We don't yet have an announcement, but there's plenty in the media today we can speculate on. Tell me why you need this package at the moment, because I alluded to this at the start of the program. There seems to be, at least for now, plenty of work for tradespeople around the country. What are you concerned about in the medium to longer term?
Thanks, Peter. Unfortunately, the building and construction industry always has a lag when we have an economic downturn. We've been very lucky to be deemed an essential industry, and we have worked through the suppression phase with existing contracts. The problem is now what next? And unfortunately, our members are telling us that they are seeing a decline pretty consistently around the country of a 40% drop in forward contracts that will start hitting us in September. So we want to ensure that we keep those people in jobs, and hence the reason why we've undertaken modelling by EY to show how government stimulus, not subsidies, can actually support the continuation of those jobs in our sector.
Okay, talk me through the difference that you see between stimulus and subsidies. What do you want to see?
We want to see grants to ensure the building continues. Our concern is if we get that 40% decline, there could be up to 400,000 people out of work and seeking job seeker or some type of unemployment benefits. That is not good for the country at all. Rather, we think that there is some opportunities to spend money on stimulus, particularly in the residential sector that is so labour reliant, to keep people working. And our modelling suggests that about a $10 billion spend in the residential sector will create about $25 billion in economic activity and about 60,000 jobs saved. So we think that is good value for money.
Is there a difference, Denita, between $1 of stimulus put into the residential housing market and the use of smaller contractors and subcontractors, and $1 put into large-scale infrastructure projects? I'm thinking here of a freeway or a port construction. Is there any differential between the two?
There is when it comes to jobs. You can get much better value in terms of job outcomes by undertaking residential stimulus. On a one home alone, you can have up to 40 people working on it, 20-odd trades at any one given time. So while civil infrastructure gives us those permanent structures, in terms of jobs and the magnitude of jobs, the best bang for your buck is in the residential housing market.
Right, well, talk to me here about rorting, because, seared in my memory is pink bats. For all, probably the right intents, and they had this idea that somehow it would be an environmental measure as well. Kevin Rudd threw $2 billion at pink bats and then spent another $2 billion from the taxpayer ripping them out when we had 400 plus homes catch fire and 4 young tradesmen lose their lives. How can we get it right this time?
Peter, that's been very much at the forefront of our thinking. We've suggested that governments use the state government existing structures in terms of first homeowner grant structures and frameworks in place. We think it's very important, particularly from the renovations perspective, that it is subject to a proper constructed contract that is covered by home warranty in that jurisdiction, and it is overseen by that bureaucratic process. So there are some safeguards that we have suggested to the government to ensure that we have minimised those risks of not occurring again, because we certainly no one wants to see that situation.
Now, just before we go, Denita, do you have any time sense of when we might see this announcement by the government?
We've obviously asked for it sooner rather than later. It does take some time for contracts to get in place. So we think it's imperative the decision is made in the next week or two and announced accordingly so people can get on with the job and signing those contracts. So we've got some surety that we don't need to start laying people off. And that's certainly the intent of this. It's all about keeping people in work.